agency or buy-in, as you mentioned. The second point is, given that fiscal space is quite tight anyways, and we've been facing so many headwinds, not necessarily tailwinds, you want to put, for example, if I'm talking about renewable energy, wind and solar, do you have enough investments in the grid to upload this renewable energy? So the government has to be very clear with its priorities. I'll put investments in the grid, allowing private sector to generate the wind and solar, and this is what's going to create private sector jobs, skilling, greening, and also an entrepreneurial ecosystem sometimes, which does the measurement for the CO2 and so forth. So it's a matter of clarity with the objectives, a very constructive dialogue and understanding when it comes to those who ratify these plans, which is Parliament, which represents people and governorates and so forth. And then finally, what creates the continuous buy-in is that the projects get implemented, so people can see that the energy transition or the climate action is not just a burden on development, but it's part of development, because each and every energy project, in addition to creating jobs, creates green capacity for more industrialization, for more economic activity. So it's very important to create the overall narrative, and there's so much work that has been written since Glasgow, actually, on the importance of thinking about climate action and development as inseparable. They are not mutually exclusive. It's not either or, and that is something that needs to be continued and pushed. I don't know the issue of yesterday and the announcement of yesterday, how consequential that would be on the multilateral development banks, on the dialogue around climate. Are we going to go back? So it's very strange that today is the first day of Davos, but yesterday this happened. So I think how far in terms of creating disturbance in a path which look to be moving forward with gains for developing countries, and also better understanding for the multilateral development banks and the global institutions that do provide financing. I don't know. Let's see how that works out. I don't have an answer. All of us, I think, have questions.
Nobody does.
Yeah, exactly. I said none of us have questions.
I think from the state perspective, the question that we've been asking is, how do you go from mine to energy? We have the entire value chain, the ecosystem. How do you build it out? And how do you create consistency in policies? So if you look at India's view, is that how do we bring every bit of our ecosystem? So if you look at rooftop solar, to agriculture being solarized, then to the entire green hydrogen, which seems to be the buzzword, and various investments coming into that sector, green steel. So I think, at least from India's context, is to set the policy straight. Yes, there are some subsidies required, but it's not over and beyond the physical challenges that any state or the federal government would have. That's one part. But the second part again is, how do you make this the transition political resistant, or resistant to politics, right? And that's going. And as a HRD minister, my focus is, how do I create the next set of jobs that we don't even know in exactly which area they're going to come. So working with the industry, working with NGOs, collaborating with them, getting the curriculum, the whole 9 yards, and creating the next wave of jobs, I think is going to be very, very important to make it more resistant.
Thank you so much. I'm being mindful of time, and I'll request one piece, which is, this is a conversation, so if we have one question, thought, insight from participants. I know there's folks in the back as well. We'd welcome that before we shut down to the next conversation series.
So basically, as we discussed, lots of the focus on mitigation globally as well as in India, and the resources, particularly financial resources allocated for the adaptation, are very less. At the same time, communities are facing lots of challenges because of the climate change, and not only this issue is related to just transition, but it is very bigger. Because of the climate change, lots of people, as far as migrant workers. and many of them are getting so and the just how we can broadening the just transition definition in that context.
Thank you. Do you want to just 30 seconds shortly share?
Yeah, well, I would have one question towards you. I found it very interesting what you were saying with creating the new job opportunities, which I think is great and is needed. I'd like to go on the topic of the next generations. We have a massive swift, between the generations that are currently in the power positions and the ones that are coming. And I'll be very honest with you, I am one from these generations. We don't believe many things that are said because it's very often the same thing. It's said. How are you going to tackle this problem of transparency and trust that is existing towards like all of these promises and all of these COPs and WEFs and etc. etc. It's nice, but yeah, we don't see the results. I'm sorry. Don't want to be rude here, but yeah, I'd be interested in that.
I think that's a valid question. Before I come to you, I think the way we're looking at it as a state is how do you incentivize farmers? How do you Honorable Prime Minister's program, Suryaghar, which is rooftop solar for every house. That's the exact PPA, power purchase agreement we're doing with every citizen. And I think that's one of the simple mechanisms that we can create the incentive structure for greater adoption. To be fair, India is seen, and for every country to really become a developed nation, low cost of energy is going to be critical. So between solar, wind and pump storage, as of today, I don't know PSP where it will be in the next 5 years, currently is viable. So at about 4 and 5 rupees a unit in Indian rupees, it actually makes sense. So I think tying the entire incentive structure, I think is going to be very, very critical in that sense. Coming to your point, yes, I think a lot of promises have been made. The Honourable Minister has also made very clear in the opening remarks. But I think time has come. I mean, look at what's outside. This is probably the greenest Davos that we have seen. Last night, that's the whole discussion we were having.